Empire.
Welcome to the latest edition of the All Caps podcast with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino, and we are pleased to be joined by Elliotte Friedman of Sportsnet, who recently kicked my ass in fantasy football a couple weeks ago. So congratulations on your big victory.
You know, I'm in the final this week, Steve. I think it's the first time in the history of the league that I've actually made the final. You know, basically, Karl, the way it goes for me is I lose interest. You know, the NHL season starts going. I'm constantly looking at news and stuff for that. And, you know, I do things like I forgot to set my roster, or like I had to drop out of my hockey pool because I just never set the roster enough. And I was just blowing money, basically. And if you're going to blow money, you should blow money on fun things, not aggravating things like sports pools. Yeah. And but this year, last year I made a bunch of good trades. I got a bunch of high picks, and I went for it this year, and I traded a first-round pick for Aaron Rodgers this year, and I'm in the final. I have no idea if I'm going to win. Like, you never know what your roster is going to look like, but I'm at least enjoying the opportunity for a change.
Yeah, and Scott Burns and I own teams in two of these leagues, and we went all in, also made a bunch of trades, and we still lost. So now we have no picks, and we'll basically be drinking for the first 5 or 6 rounds while all you guys are picking in August.
Well, that's a good way to do it. That's a good way to do it.
I had the same thing happen to me this year. I'm playing in 2 leagues, one that I'm running and one that I'm just playing in. And the one that I'm running, I put everything that I had into it and ended up losing in the first round. And the other one, I legit forgot to set my lineup last week in the semifinals. And I had a couple guys in COVID protocol, and it was the best points week I've had the entire year. And I somehow made it into the final. So I just checked it again today. And the same thing, I did my first ever hockey pool this year, and I didn't really realize, you know, how much went into it. And I started the year, I think 0-8, and my buddy finally texted me, he said, "We got to get you a win. What's going on?" And I said, how does this even work with setting the lineups? And he just told me, I just found out that you can set your lineup for the week by pushing a button, and it just puts the players in that are supposed to be in there. And now I'm actually finally getting points. I was losing by 100 points every week, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I'm new to all this. I'm trying to figure it out, but it seems like
I got to tell you, Karl, if I was you, I'd edit that part out of the podcast. Like, you don't want everybody knowing.
Hey, no, I need the people to know that you know, maybe they'll come and play me in a hockey pool, and then I'll all of a sudden figure it out. Maybe I can hustle.
You're a hustler. You're a ringer.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're recording this minutes after the NHL announced the protocols down from 10 days to 5 days. I'm rushing a story out. Elliotte, you had to pull over to kind of tweet out this scoop. It just sounds like everybody's on board with this, though, right? Like, getting, at least in the United States now, protocols are down from 10 to 5 days. The Capitals are going to get a bunch of guys back earlier than normal because of this, and it only applies to teams in the U.S.
Well, that's still kind of fluid. The other team I know that has very strict protocols is San Jose. Like, when I was working on this, and you're right, like, I got a text about it, and my poor 10-year-old son, he had to sit like on the side of the road with the 4-ways on for a few minutes while I figured this out and made sure I had everything accurate. But I had a few people reach out to me and say, I know you guys all lump Canada in there, but don't forget San Jose. You know, San Jose has very strict protocols in Northern California that they have to put in there. You should put in there too. Now, you know, I think we're all kind of trying to determine where this is going to go, but there's no doubt in my mind, Stephen, Karl, that, you know, the players and the league really wanted this badly. And, you know, the NFL is the one that set, you know, everybody follows the lead of the NFL. And once the NFL decided to take the plunge, and, you know, hockey and basketball had an advantage here because the NFL's at the playoffs. You know, they're right there. They had less runway. They were basically saying, we are not going to let this ruin our season if we can avoid it, and our playoffs if we can avoid it. So they go first, and everybody else follows. You know, I'll tell you this. I think, you know, there have been some players like Nick Cousins of Nashville tweeted that, you know, they should postpone games.
Right.
Jonathan Drouin of Montreal He made it very clear he was nervous about playing Boston when they had an outbreak. And I think there are players who feel that way. And I think there are, people who really like the fact that even if they don't care about their own testing, they like the fact that it helps protect their families. I'm getting the sense that just more and more people in and around the game are saying, hey, we have to relax things a little bit. And, I think there's a challenge in Canada with this. I think the Canadian teams probably feel the same way. I think the players on Canadian teams feel the same way for a lot of the part, like Tyler Myers vocalized it, but it's very difficult for a lot of them to say it. So I think this will be a popular move, and now we'll see what happens in Canada and in San Jose.
Right. And so it's interesting because this all leads into, and I know this is the talk, I'm sure you've been talking about it every single day now, but obviously the Olympics, and Olympics is something that Capitals fans I think are pretty into, because obviously you're cheering for your Team USA, but we got a lot of players here that represent other countries as well, the Russians. And I was reading something about a Vladimir Tarasenko interview that he had, talking about how frustrating it is for him because this is something that you dream about.
Yeah.
And,
that was my story, Karl. Thank you.
But yeah, exactly. There you go. Wino's got all the scoops here. So to me, it's a tough call as well, because I've talked to a couple of the players about it, and it seems like, the reason why I like to ask you is because you are as tapped in as you are. It seems like there was a bit of a miscommunication or not enough information, because some players are feeling like they've been, the kind of the rug has been pulled out from underneath them, and all of a sudden they can't go. And other guys, I think they seem to think it's okay. And all of a sudden this decision was made where it seemed like maybe the league was talking with the PA, and then all of a sudden a decision was made. And now some guys are saying that wasn't necessarily the case. And so I'm curious how that all happens so fast, just like that. And the vibe that you're getting from players and maybe management and people that around the league, what the full picture is on this.
Well, I think, Karl, that you're right about one thing. Like, there's a lot of different opinions. Mm-hmm. And, Brad Marchand, who, went public with his opinions the other day, and, it's like some people agree with him, some people disagree with him. I'm sure he doesn't care. That's his opinion, and he wanted everybody to know it. And, I think that's the way it is. It's like life right now. You put 100 people into a room, you're going to get 10,000 different arguments. People are going to feel certain ways. Where it sounds to me like the breakdown was, and I don't know whose fault this is, but I think the players, Karl, believed it would be their individual decision. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I had asked, like in the week or two before, Omicron got really bad, and it became like 2 weeks before Omicron really started to hit, I thought it was like 90% sure we were going to the Olympics. And I think what I asked somebody was, and I asked someone from the league and I asked someone from the Players Association, I got yes answers both ways, was, could it happen where, say, for argument's sake, the Canadians and the Swedes said, we don't want to go, and the Russians and the Americans said, we want to go? And for argument's sake, could you get a full Russian team and a full American team against a mixed or all European / AHL Canadian Swedish team? And I was told yes. I was told that could happen, that the players could vote individually and say, look, I'm going, I'm not going, I'm going, I'm not going. Like Steven Stamkos, he made it very clear he was probably going to go. And I think there were other players who made it pretty clear. Erik Karlsson was one, for example. He probably wasn't going to go. And I think there were a lot of people, privately and publicly saying the same thing. What I don't think the players fully understood was, and I don't know if this was a lack of communication or they just didn't pay attention. I've heard both.
Yeah.
Is that they didn't realize that the league had an ability to say, none of you can go.
Yeah.
I don't think they recognized that. And once we got to the point a couple days before Christmas where they had to postpone the league for 3 days, they got to a number of games that they just couldn't let the players go. And I don't think enough players understood that was an option on the table. I think they really believed it was going to be each of their individual choices.
Right, and that's Elliotte. Yeah, that what I was going to say is Elliotte is the same. What I think could have happened was if the season is stopped. Sure, you could have players, I guess, named to the roster and choose not to go or opt out. But there was never going to be a chance, and I think you're right, for players to choose while the season's going on to leave their teams to play. And I think that's where either the confusion or lack of information exists. Right.
Yes, I think that, like, for example, last summer. The broadcaster up here in Canada that does the games, as you guys both know, is CBC. And they asked me if I wanted to work the games last summer in Tokyo. And I wanted to, but Rogers said, now, hold on, the Stanley Cup playoffs are going into the summer. And then we have the rights to the draft and we have a day on free agency. We need you for all that. And, they said you can't go for that reason. And I didn't like it because I love the Olympics, but I understood. They're my primary employer,
right?
And they pay me to do a job. So like people who feel like Brad Marchand feel, I totally get it because I felt that way last summer. But you understand that, you have a responsibility to your organization, and I don't like it, but I understand it.
Right. Well. So what would you guys do? Both you guys. I'm curious. What do you think the best situation would be? Is it just kind of opt out, don't go the way it's going right now? If you could say if we had the ability to do so, they push back the whole Olympics a year and hope that everything starts to clear up. What do you think the ideal situation would be?
Well, I think the ideal situation would be to push it back a year, but it's late for that now, Karl. Mm-hmm. And some of my friends who are around the Olympics, whether as coaches or executives or competitors or media, they think that, the less people that go, the more medals China wins. And as like a homegrown puffing the chest out competition, that appeals to the country. Mm-hmm. So that they like, I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, and it probably is, but that's the way my friends who know more about this think.
Yeah, and Elliotte, I think you're right, Elliotte. And as someone who's actually also, I'm going regardless.
You're going anyway.
There's a nerve factor here about testing positive, but and the hockey tournament's not going to be very good. But yeah, I think that the likelihood of this actually getting postponed a year is not very high.
No, I think it's extremely unlikely. I mean, that like you know what? In a perfect world, Karl, we go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
We go, we play. Like I'm a fan. I'm a member of the media, but I'm a fan. I love hockey. I want to see Ovechkin one more time at the height of his powers at the Olympics on best. I want to see Crosby one more time at the height of his powers, best on best. But you know what I also want to see? I want to see the Crosby generation and the McDavid generation drop the puck against the Kane generation and the Matthews generation. Exactly. I want to see that. It's time. And you know what? I think they all want to see that too. I think all those guys are dying to play against each other. And that sucks. It sucks that now I know the World Cup is not the same as the Olympics. I know the last World Cup, and Karl, I'm sure you know guys who played in it. It wasn't as successful as it could and should have been. They have to do it now. And I know it's not the Olympics, but these guys want to play against each other. They want to.
Yeah, 2024, right? And Steven Stamkos said this the other day to us: is the Olympics are the Olympics, and nothing is the same. But Taylor Hall mentioned it as well. Is you have to almost turn the World Cup into meaning what it means to soccer, to hockey, and if you can build up a tradition of it, and that's the problem by not doing it every 4 years and not having it on a regular turn, with whether it's a lockout or a pandemic or whatever, is if you can have that on a regular turn, you make the World Cup mean as much or more than the Olympics because it has a tradition, but it takes years to build that tradition up.
Yes, it does. And it takes a commitment. I mean, I know I'm a lot older than you guys, and I look a lot older than you guys, but I remember as a kid and a teenager looking forward to the Canada Cup.
Sure.
That was a great competition. Now, there was a lot of mystery then. We didn't, the Russians didn't play in North America. The Czechs barely played in North America. and the Swedes and Finns were still basically coming. But I think you have to be committed to it. Like I just know the last one, it didn't go as well as everybody liked, and that's a problem. You can learn your lessons, but the thing is, right now where the iron is hot is I think the players really want it. Like that's one thing that I really do believe here is that Crosby and McDavid, they skated together last summer. And why did they do that? Because they love the opportunity of playing with each other. There's a book I just read. It's this is actually reminding me. I got to put this in my blog. It's a book called Built to Lose, and it's about the NBA's tanking generation. And there's a paragraph in it where they talk about how one of the things that they didn't realize about tanking was that, when you have good players that go to the Olympics, is that the good players see what it's like to compete with each other on a journey, on a significant journey. And when you accomplish that journey, there's this bond that's created. And they think that the losing generation created some of the super team generation. And they didn't realize how much it means to athletes to compete to win and compete together on the path to win. And again, Karl, I defer to you on this one. You played on some really good teams. What it's like to walk into the room when you're on a winning team and you're competing for something special, and the idea of sharing a big victory together. It's like when Steve and I break big stories, like that feeling, right? Why not?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's just like, and I think that's what the players feel like. I think McDavid wants to play with Crosby. I think Matthews wants to play with Kane. I think the Russians, like Ovechkin, you don't think that guy wants another shot on the international stage? Like, Ovi, how much it killed him to lose on that big stage. Like, you don't think he wants another shot at Crosby on the big stage? Like, let's let these guys have it.
Absolutely. And I think that there's so much more parity in the league right now too. Like it's not a okay, Canada's going to the Olympics and they're going to win. There's so many good players out there, and then it just comes down to which country puts the best team together. And like you said, the memories and the bonds that you make from those tournaments, it's just crazy. Like I always think about this, and when I went over and played in Montreal, and Carey Price was one of the guys that would always put the music on. And I remember one time he put on a song, and then as soon as the song turned on, it just clicked. And I looked over at him, and he was looking at me already and smiled. And it was the song that we had for our pump up video in World Juniors back in 2000 and 2007. And it was times like these by the Foo Fighters.
And that was a big one.
Yeah. And so you just have these songs and these moments that you can associate with these tournaments and with these players. And it just turns into a bigger memory, something that's bigger than just the tournament. It's a lifelong thing. And so for guys to miss out on that, I mean, it's heartbreaking, because there's so many guys that they only have a window of maybe a year or two, and then they don't get that opportunity, and it's gone, and I just hate seeing that. I love watching the Olympics as well. I would love to see a World Cup. I think that would be fun. And I'm hoping that they can find a way to do it, because I want to see, like you said, a Kane and Matthews play together. I want to see a McDavid, Crosby get out there. It would just be so much fun to see.
Yeah, I think the difference this time, guys, too, is that I think the fans will want it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not sure how much the fans wanted the last one, but I think they're going to want this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there is a 2024 element to this, that we don't want to wait till 2026 to see best on best hockey again. We're going to take a break here on All's Caps and come back with Elliotte Friedman, talk a little bit of Capitals, and of course, Karl's stupid questions. Welcome back to All's Caps. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Weiner with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner, and joined by Sportsnet's Elliotte Friedman. A lot of, and I think we're all in agreement on the Olympics and the World Cup and that sort of situation. Looking ahead to some Capitals stuff, this is a thing that Karl and I discussed kind of on and off the air of what do you think is coming for the Capitals, and the trade deadline is a little bit away, but from kind of what you're hearing and figuring, Elliotte, is there something you think the Capitals are in the market for in the next couple of months?
Well, the number one thing is I always believe is results dictate, right? And I look at them and I didn't know what to expect from Washington this year. Backstrom obviously started out look, Ovechkin's a great player. I think we all have learned to expect the unexpected for him. I don't know if anyone if you would have told me he was having a Hart Trophy level season, I would have said okay. If you would have told me he was having a Hart Trophy season with no one-timer slap shot goals and at a time being atop the league in assists, yep, I would have said, I'll have, whatever you're on. I don't know. I don't know if I ever would have believed that. So the Capitals have surprised me this year. But the other thing too is I also go in with this. I know Ovechkin signed for 5 years. I know Backstrom is signed for 5 years. But to me, this is a team that kind of was like the Penguins with Crosby and Malkin, right? As long as you have them, you're going for it. You're not playing for the future. I look at them and I wonder if they're looking at a little I got to sort out their defense once everybody gets healthy and out of COVID protocol and kind of figure out where they are there. But I just wonder, are they going to look for a top 9 forward, like a center or something like that? That's where I kind of look at them and say, do they need one more impactful middle depth center forward kind of guy? You guys agree or disagree?
Certainly a face-off guy. I think more than anything, other than Nick Dowd and Nick Backstrom when he's healthy, this team doesn't have a whole lot of guys who can win a face-off.
Yeah, that I think any team can pretty much use a guy that can win a face-off. And the hard thing is, and it's the same with a lot of these teams right now, is almost nobody has played at full strength. There's always somebody out of the lineup, so you don't really get to see what that team is made of. And I think that's definitely holds true for the Caps. I think their lineup is pretty good, at least on paper, when everybody's healthy. And Wino, we talked about this a little bit. And if there was an area that you might want to address, it would be a net. And I know it's hard to say that because you got two good young goaltenders, but we looked it up ahead of time. So an average save percentage for a goalie is 9-10, right? Why knows what we said?
Yeah, and that's exactly where Samsonov's at.
It's exactly where Samsonov's at. He's got a good record right now, but I don't think you can just be average in the playoffs. And of course, you can heat up and be good, but do you want to risk an entire season on hoping that one of them heats up and is good and doesn't get injured? Because that's been an issue as well. So that would be if there was an option out there. I'm not sure. I know that there's some guys' names that have been thrown around a little bit, but I think if you can find a way to get someone into your lineup like that, a solid, proven goaltender, then I think maybe you jump at something like that. But I just don't know exactly what the rumblings are out there of who could get moved.
Well, I think the tough thing right now, Karl, is that we're in the middle of COVID. So It's really difficult to figure out what's going to happen here. And the other thing is the trade deadline's late this year. It's in the third week of March, right? So we've still got another 3 months before we get there. Mm-hmm. But the one thing is I think the Capitals have let it be known that they're there. And I think McClellan and his bosses Patrick and Leonsis, they're aggressive. They're not satisfied with one. When you have that taste, you're either sad. I think you say for a year you kind of bask in it, but now I think they're kind of hungry again. We like the taste of that. We liked Ovechkin swimming in the fountains. We'd like to have some more of that. And I think they'll be in it. The thing about Samsonov, I was listening as you guys were talking, I always wonder, I have no problem with Ovechkin at all. I think he's earned the right to do what he wants. I always kind of am interested by some of the reactions he has on the bench towards people. Yeah. We've seen him kind of look at Samsonov a few times, what exactly is going on here? So I think I would be very curious to hear his reaction to that. I think Washington's really good, and I think you guys are right in the sense that it's very hard with them and a lot of other teams to say this is exactly what you've got. But I could see them maybe going for another goalie. I don't know. Like at some point in time, you have to decide, is Samsonov our guy or not?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you just give him the year this year to determine, all right, Ilya, you're going to answer this question for us.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And you mentioned this, Elliotte. As long as you have Nick Backstrom and Alex Ovechkin, you're going for it. And so there's got to be a balance from Brian McClellan and the front office to, we want to see if this guy is our guy for the future. And do we really want to risk Samsonov tearing a groin or going into COVID protocol first week of the last week of the season, like happened last year? And then all of a sudden you're down to Craig Anderson and you're down to. So I think at a very least there's an insurance policy there needed for this team, just like they wanted to do with Henrik Lundqvist. And I have brought up Marc-Andre Fleury's name because I think that story would be a hell of an amazing tale. Or a guy like or James Reimer. Yeah, other of those guys.
Yeah.
You know, I think those are all good choices.
Yeah. You even look back at the year that they did win. They started the playoffs with Grubauer. He was the starting goalie, right? And then all of a sudden you switch. So yeah, like you said,
maybe you could bring back Holtby.
That's exactly, bring him back just for one last parade, and I think that would be a heck of a story as well. Let's do it.
Yeah, and you know, I'm all in the favor of bringing back Braden Holtby and Jay Beagle at the deadline. If Karl, if you want to start playing again, they can bring you back too.
Yep, I'm ready. I'm in shape. Let's do it. I'll be there in a heartbeat. Too good. Why not? We gotta ask a couple of fun questions here.
Yeah, we got to do Karl's stupid questions.
All right, let's do it. Should we get straight into it, or you want to take a sec?
No, it's all yours.
All right, Elliotte. So first of all, before we get into this, I have to shout this out because I've been listening to 32 Thoughts with you and Jeff Merrick, and I love it because it reminds me of like me hanging out with my buddies or a bunch of guys on the team, just kind of hot stoving and talking about, you know, the scoops and what's going on around the league or what could happen or what we think could and should happen. And the only difference is that you guys actually have informed opinions and actual scoops.
That's not true.
Well, it sure seems like it. So if it's not true, then you guys are doing a good job. So I just want to let you know that I think it's awesome. And whoever's listening to this as well, 32 Thoughts is a really, really good listen. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I'm going to hit you with these very hard-hitting questions. And if you don't know exactly how it works, some of them are kind of hockey-related, some not at all. And I'm going to tally up a score for you at the end and let you know how you did.
Okay, all right. Let's see how we do. Okay,
so the first one is hockey-related. And I know you said that you're a fan of hockey, fan of the NHL. But what would you say is your least favorite thing about the NHL?
Oh, my least favorite thing about the NHL?
Yeah.
I would say my least favorite thing about the NHL is probably the conformity. And I think we're getting better. I think we have to understand that the next generation of fans is going to demand a bit more individualism. And I think you can still be an individual and be part of a team. Like, as you guys know, like, as I've gotten older, I've lost all sense of professionalism on the air. I've grown my hair. I've grown out my beard. I wear crazy suits, but it's still very important to me to be a good teammate as best as I can be to the people I work with at Sportsnet. And I think that would be my least favorite thing, is that we crush individualism a bit too much, but I think we're getting better, Karl.
Yeah, I agree. And I read something where you said, if you can make somebody laugh while still doing your job, that's what you're going for. And I think that's part of it. You don't want to, I don't think you really want to, command too much spotlight and think that you're all of a sudden the best and not be able to poke fun at yourself. And I think you do that really well. So I agree with you on that. This one I thought was interesting because you know what it's like. You can sit with some of these guys for hours just swapping stories and talking and laughing. And I'm curious, of all the people that you've had a chance to chat with, whether it's on air or off air, who would you say is the funniest person you've had a chance to either work with or just sit down and swap stories with?
It's Kevin Bieksa.
Yeah,
it is Bieksa because he is ruthless. It takes a lot to offend me, guys. It really does. I think that you have to have a thick skin to be successful in general, and now in today's social media environment. BX says things to me that I just laugh. Like you can't even repeat them because he'll get in trouble, because even though it's funny and not mean, people just react crazily. BX is like one of the funniest human beings I've ever been around. As a guy I don't know really well, who whenever I see him though really does make me laugh hysterically. Like, to be in two guys, I would say, I wonder what it was really like to be in the dressing room in San Jose with Joe Thornton and Brent Burns all those years.
Yeah.
Because every time I see those two guys, they make me laugh, but it's only snippets, right? You don't really know them, but they're hilarious people.
Exactly. He's kind of one of those mythical creatures, Joe Thornton. Like you just want to know so much about him, but you just don't get as much as you want. So yeah. I've heard that, and yeah, the Kevin Bieksa stuff is really good. There's very few guys that can walk that line of saying a few things that are offside and not really get in trouble for it all the time. And he seems to be one of those guys. He does it really well.
Underrated, by the way, underrated Washington guy. And I know he's been in a lot of trouble, a lot of difficulties the last couple of years, but I've always liked Kuznetsov. Always.
Yeah. Okay, so I agree with you, and I'll quickly bring this up because I know we don't have a ton of time, but I was in McLean the other day, which is where he lives, and I saw this place. It's called the Russian Market, and I sent him a picture, and I said, "Is this place any good?" He said, "Yeah, I really like that place. Go talk to the gentleman inside. He's great." And I said, "Any recommendations of your favorite things in there?" He says to me, "What's your favorite thing at Harris Teeter, the grocery store here?" And I'm like, yeah, okay, good point. I guess it's hard to pick what's your favorite thing in the grocery store. It's just like little comments that made me laugh. I wasn't expecting it out of him, but I agree with you. He is pretty funny.
Yeah. I've liked my exchanges with him.
Yeah. Okay,
and I'm glad to see he's back in the right direction.
Yes.
Happy for
him.
We
all are. Okay. Next year is, what's your favorite board game?
Ooh, so I go in phases, right?
Yeah.
Right now, it's Sorry.
Oh, yes. You have a 10-year-old, you said, right?
Yes, but in the past, Clue.
Yes.
I loved Clue, and Mastermind. I love Mastermind.
Okay, good ones. I don't think I've played Mastermind, so I'm going to get in on that. I'll give you a recommendation.
I'm with you on Clue, though. So my family's like holiday tradition for years has been playing Haunted Mansion, Disney Haunted Mansion Clue at the dinner table after Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. That's been for years our tradition.
That's awesome.
And we've had these arguments about whether you're allowed to bluff about whether you know something or not, and then all of a sudden it comes around to you and you're like, I actually have to say I didn't actually get this right. And so we've had some family arguments over the years over Clue, but I love it.
Oh, that's so good. Well,
I would also recommend escape apps on the iPad.
Yes,
I love that stuff. What's your game, Karl?
Yeah, so we play a ton of Ticket to Ride here at this house. Unbelievable game, Ticket to Ride, and then Catan. We used to call ourselves Catanimals. We'd be playing this every single night, and then we finally got a little bored of it, but we still play Ticket to Ride quite a bit, and it's this very simple game. I think that's why I like it. You can get one finished in 20-30 minutes, and it's a good one. But yeah, those escape rooms, we've bought the ones called Exit the Room or Exit the Game, and it's a one-time use game. Highly recommend it. And it seriously pisses you off so much, but at the same time it's such a fun game. So I'm gonna get in. I'm gonna send you a link to that, and I'm gonna get going on Mastermind. Okay, so let's go with the next one here. Do you have a most embarrassing moment or a time where you were working really hard for something, for a scoop, or you wanted to break something and it didn't go the way that you had hoped, or it came out sounding a little funky, or just a moment that really messed with you?
Yeah, everybody knows what that moment was for me. I had a terrible mistake in swimming at the Olympics a couple years ago, and I actually have generally the memory of a goaltender. I've learned over the years that things are going to go wrong, and you better learn your mistake and move on. But that one really shook me because I was worried about the effect it had on my family, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But it was bad. It took me a long time to get over that one. And actually, I have to tell you, Karl, one of the things that bothered me the most about it was not only the mistake, but how long it took me to put that behind it, because I'm normally much better than that.
The effect it had on the family. Enough said.
Yeah.
And we were all behind you, Elliotte, too, because like we all make mistakes. It just doesn't always happen on.
I had a lot of support.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. I had a lot of support, Stephen. I've never forgotten.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so last two here. In terms of vacations, what would you choose? A beach vacation, winter vacation, or a sightseeing vacation?
Beach, and the other two aren't even in the same continent.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
I love the beach.
What kind of beach? You talking like the Caribbean, or are you like a Hawaii, Mexico type thing? What do you want?
I love Hawaii. I love the Mediterranean. I love the coast of Italy, and I've never been to Croatia, but I've heard like that coast is beautiful too.
Right.
It's on my bucket list. Anything with a sandy beach and clear water, and maybe some waves to ride a little bit, I'm great with that.
Nice. All right. I think that's a good answer right there.
My family doesn't even have to come with me. I'll have a great time.
Yeah, exactly. With how much you're always going right now, I'm sure just some peaceful time alone would be good. Mm-hmm. Okay, last one here. This is the hardest hitting question that I have, and I figured you'd be a good question, be a good person to ask this question to. It is a hot dog a sandwich?
100% it is.
100% it's a sandwich.
100%.
So how would you define what a sandwich is?
I can't define it. I can't. I just know it when I see it. It's like the old line about porn. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
So then in that case, a burger is also considered a sandwich?
Yes, a burger is a sandwich too. Yes.
Okay, okay.
But we just call it a burger. We call it a hot dog, but it still is a sandwich.
The discussion that comes up sometimes is a sandwich being classified as meat or some sort of toppings in between two pieces of bread. And that is clearly what a hot dog is. But then they're wondering, is a sub the same as a hot dog? Is a sub, we call it a Subway sandwich, but no one ever calls it a hot dog sandwich. And so I'm wondering how we can get the lines so blurred here between a hot dog, a sandwich, a burger, and a sub. When do we need to just have a universal name for all of these things? And is that a sandwich?
Okay, Karl, why do people have to complicate things? Why can't things just be easy?
So what we need to do is on all menus, it just says, can I get the sandwich with meat, mustard, and ketchup and relish?
No. It just means call it whatever you want to call it. Call it a hot dog. Call it a sub. Call it a burger. I don't see any budget in any government for the word police. Nobody has to listen to the word police. Call it whatever you want. Just don't make it complicated. My pea brain is not smart enough to handle all this stuff.
Oh, too good. Well, some people are passionate about this topic, and so they'll get going. And I've had a couple of these conversations where they've lasted like half an hour, and it blows people's minds. It blows my mind too, but I just had to see where you were at on that, and I like that you were steady in your answer. So quickly adding up all these right here. This is a tough one, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you a 95 points.
All right.
Yes, it's really good.
Is it out of 100? Is it out of 100 or out of 10,000? Like, I guess I should ask that first.
It just depends, honestly. I mean, it's whatever I'm feeling right now. And I put you tied with Matthew Pro, a good buddy of mine. So.
Well, hey, he's a smart guy. I'll take that. I'll take that.
You should be pretty happy with that. Nice work. I think that's good.
Well, I enjoy the Drew Carey nature of Karl just making up points as we go along here, Elliotte.
At some point, someone's going to earn 1 million points, and they're just going to blow everybody out of the water.
You know who that's going to be? That's going to be like, who's an old defense partner of yours? Is it going to be like Carlson or something like that?
Yeah. So he'll probably he was going to come on before the schedule changed there, but I'm probably going to give him like 1 point just to bust his balls. I can't let him lead this thing. I'm still hurting from his World Junior overtime goal. I can't ever give him props for anything anymore.
You guys should have Sergey on. I'd like to hear his answers to some of these questions.
I asked Sergey the one time, why don't you were there? I said, hey, you got someone for us to come on? Do you want to come on the podcast? He's like, didn't you play in this league for like 12 or 13 years? You got to get me on as your guest. I'm like, I think you got all the good stories, man. You're the guy that can protects all the guys. I'm sure you got some good dirt for us.
Yeah, he's taking those either to the grave or till he gets his book deal.
Yeah, we've talked about having a pay-for version of this where Eric Fair and some other guys can tell the off-the-record stories, because we get a little off-the-record here, but there are certain things that even Ben Guerrero, our old buddy who's in Seattle now, doesn't want to share maybe on this program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
that's probably best.
That's probably for the best. Elliotte, thank you very much for joining us. Everybody, obviously, read 32 Thoughts, listen to the 32 Thoughts podcast, and watch Elliotte on Sportsnet. Unfortunately, not CBC for the Olympics, but at every occasion on Hockey Night in Canada.
Thanks a lot, guys. It was a real pleasure to be on. Karl, don't take my job.
I don't think it will.
That's very much a concern for the future. Karl and I will be right back. We'll talk a little more Capital stuff moving forward. We'll talk to you in a couple minutes here on All Caps. Welcome back to All's Caps. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alsner. It was fun to talk to Elliotte, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is fun. So, I mean, it's tough because, we have a lot of the people who are going to listen to this are Washington Capitals fans and probably based in this area. And you don't get a lot of, Sports Center stuff or Hockey Night in Canada stuff is where Elliotte kind of reigns supreme. And that's where everybody sees a lot of his face. And I just think it's really cool because, you're the same way. You guys work so hard for the scoops that you get and for the information that you get and making sure that it's correct and that you get it out there. So people are, on Twitter, it's the best way to do it. You're getting it at that moment. And the amount of work, like you just said, he was just driving down. He was late a little bit to get onto the podcast because he's driving down the street and all of a sudden something breaks and it's part of the job where you just got to find a way to get it out there. You also want to make sure, of course, that your source is correct and it's not just something that somebody's just putting out there to see how many clicks they can get. It's just such an interesting job, and it's cool because you can relate to this and how important it is to make sure that you're staying on top of it. And I wanted to ask him, but it's just with how busy he is and the pressure that both of you guys, you got to feel with always wanting to make sure you're on top of everything. It's got to be tough.
Yeah, and the way you might look at an Erik Karlsson or a Drew Doughty in terms of what they can do, like offensively, I look at someone like Elliotte and Chris Johnston and Pierre LeBrun as they're better at this job than I am, and that's fine. Doesn't mean I'm not trying to beat them at any occasion, but you realize at a certain point that like this guy's an insider and is connected to the league in ways that I'm not yet, and as Elliotte pointed out, a little bit younger than he is. But I also had the time I had to pull over for a story. One of the many, the one I remember right now is when Adam Oates got hired as Capitals coach. I was driving somewhere, and all of a sudden it breaks. And I think honestly, Elliotte reported it first that Adam Oates has been hired by the Capitals. I pull over. I'm making calls. I've got the laptop in my lap, kind of put the seat back and put the steering wheel up and make sure you get that story out, because that's your job no matter what's happening at a given time.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting too, like something these are just behind the scenes things that most fans don't ever get to take part in, I guess. And I remember the first time that I had a member of the media, the Canadian media, I guess, reach out to me just asking if I had any information on what might be happening during a trade deadline. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, how'd they get my number? And am I supposed to say anything? Like, how does this even work? I was pretty young at the time. And I just thought it was just so interesting. And that was the first time that it kind of opened up my eyes to, this is kind of how this works. Cause they said, let me know if you hear anything going on with the team and I'll let you know if I hear anything as well. And I'm like, oh, I guess, yeah, it's possible that these guys are going to know these things before me, and it'd be kind of cool to have that scoop with the guys if we're in the dressing room or whatever, and all of a sudden I hear so-and-so's on the block. It's just interesting how that works. And then Elliotte reached out to me one time, I think when I was coming home from Montreal. I can't remember exactly. And we had a good talk about, just about kind of where the direction was going with me and hockey and stuff. And, there's certain guys that you just feel comfortable talking to, and that you know that they're going to do the story justice, and they're going to be fair. It's not something one-sided. Then you feel comfortable with giving them some information, whatever you have, and know that it's not really going to come back to you, or if it does, it's going to be safe. It's what a lot of the people are worried about, I know, when they are talking to somebody. So it's just cool. I think that, like you said, you're younger than he is. You got lots of time to get yourself into those roles, but relationship making, man, does it go a far way in this business? Because it's kind of, the old saying, the old boys club. It's turning into the old boys, old girls club, which is nice. There's way more women involved now, which is great. But it's kind of who you know and what you've done for them and how you can help them. And a lot of times that's how you get the scoop.
And that's why it kind of stinks now with being on Zoom some of the time and not having locker rooms open, because I remember some of the best discussions and times that you and I had, or I had with a Matt Hendricks or Joel Ward or whoever, was just the time kind of bullshitting in the locker room, to where like the recorder's not out, but you're just kind of like getting to know people. Matt Hendricks' twins were born, and he rushed to a game in Jersey. And so now every time I talk to Matt, it's like, how are the kids doing? Because of just situations of being a human. That's all it is.
Well, exactly. That's for sure what it is. And it sucks to miss out on that. Or if you run into one of the reporters or one of the players or whatever at a restaurant or in the hotel lobby or just whatever, you just start talking things that aren't hockey related. And I actually had a member of the Montreal media at one point at the end of the season or beginning of the next season, my second year there. He just said to me, he's like, "Hey, I just want to say sorry. I was really hard on you in the papers and online last year, and I'm really pulling for you this year." And I'm just like, first of all, that sucks. Thanks a lot. But also at the same time, it was a moment where we could actually have a conversation. And I remember just asking, what was the reason? Give me some insight into why and why you're on my side now. It's just, don't get to have those conversations nearly enough, and you get to understand the person a little bit more. But we'll get back there at some point, even though having Zoom is super convenient.
Yeah, I hope we get back into locker rooms at some point, but that's among my friends and colleagues, that's a matter of debate all the time. Real quick before we go, hockey stuff. Capitals have games coming up at Detroit against the Devils on Sunday. Game at the Canadiens has been postponed now because they can't have any fans yet left. But what is this team? What is this team right now coming out of an extended COVID Christmas break?
Well, the team is good. In a good position right now. We're hoping that this was actually the question I had, and not really hockey related, but because that some of us in the household have got COVID now. Is
glad everyone's doing well, though. That's yes. Most important. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. No, we're all good. But once you have it once, does it make you less susceptible to testing positive? And it's almost like, it's like the old chickenpox thing. It's when one of the kids gets it, you have the chickenpox party, and then everybody gets it. And then are you going to be safe, for chances that you test positive a lot less likely? And it seems like over the last little bit, so many of the guys have had it. We're hoping that we can stay healthy and on that front, and then see exactly the type of team that we have here going forward. Because we talked about it too with trade options and where do they need to go. And I'm not sure that you need to do anything yet. I really want to see this team just play with a little bit more regular of a lineup and in a really good spot. Played, I guess, a game or two more than most of the other teams in the division. But I think going into the season, I mean, personally, I wasn't sure what we were going to see. And the fact that we've seen them lead or be in second in the division for the entire season so far, pretty optimistic by that.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point around the league right now is there's so many taxi squad players and minor league call-ups and guys who have been in the lineup, and the Capitals have dealt with their fair share of that, is we don't know how good anyone is, and it'll take a couple of weeks probably. Nick Backstrom back, Evgeny Kuznetsov back, kind of getting to see what the top six should look like on this team. And now the blue line's a little bit kind of messed up with some protocol absences. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what this team looks like with a Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Eller, Dowd down the middle, more than anything else. All the other stuff around the margins to me is this team won a Stanley Cup based on depth at center, and if you don't have that, you don't know. If you don't have that, you're not a Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also it could come down to just make the playoffs, and then we're actually going to see where we're at, because you may
it always is though.
It always is, but you may have a lot of teams that have just been struggling all season long, trying to keep guys in the lineup that come in, just creeping into the playoffs, and the next thing you know, they're healthy, and they should have been a top 2-3 team all season long. So we might really see that even more this year. But yeah, I forgot about Eller. Like Lars is a great player, and he's so valuable to this team when he's in there playing. So I don't know. I think there's still some good depth down the middle. It's just, time will tell. So I don't think we can really give a full assessment right now, just because it's been too up and down.
Right. Well, the good part is hockey's back. We'll get to watch some hockey, and when we get together again and talk next week, we'll have some actual games to talk about. We'll be looking ahead to actually games on the schedule in front of fans. Hopefully, things will be looking better at that point. Karl, hope you and your family can continue to stay healthy, and Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Thanks so much, Lionel.
Happy New Year to everyone out there, and we'll talk to you next week on All's Caps.